Clint, I have a problem.
I see that. First of all, that anticipation was terrible. Your grip is terrible. I think the gun's probably fine, but maybe the gun's not fine.
Are you gonna insult me, or are we gonna fix this?
Yeah, let's talk about how to fix these pistol malfunctions. Welcome back, everybody. Clint here today with Classic Firearms. We've got Katie back with us.
How's it going, guys?
And if you couldn't guess by the intro to this video, we're going to talk about some malfunctions and what might be the cause of that, how to fix that, things like that. So, Katie, what did you do wrong in that intro? What happened?
My grip was super low.
Low grip.
And I limp wristed it.
So you had you
didn't have very good grip at all.
At all.
Yeah.
And that is something that I know that you're trying to work on too. Like, obviously in the intro to the video, this was exaggerated. Katie was very good at inducing that malfunction. She's had a lot of practice. And but the good news is she knows that is an issue, and that's something that you're working on.
Yeah.
So what is limp wristing a gun? What does that mean? And ultimately, not getting a high grip on the gun or not exactly, put it this way. We've always heard that anticipating the recoil is a bad thing, right? However, we do know that the gun itself is going to reciprocate. It's going to recoil. Yes. So you need to at least brace for that. What you don't want to do is get to the point where you're anticipating so much that you are actually starting to apply downward pressure on the gun towards the muzzle and expecting of that recoil, doing that number. So as you start to pull the trigger, the muzzle starts to dip. Well, of course, once the trigger disconnects and then all of a sudden hits the primer, the striker hits the primer, it depends on whatever type of gun you're using.
Yeah. And usually between that and this, that's what causes my limp wristing. Yeah. Is because I'm trying to not anticipate and I can't find the sweet spot.
Okay, so what I'm getting at though is if you start applying pressure on the trigger and your muzzle's down here and then it goes off at this point, then you're going to be hitting into the dirt. And that's what we see a lot of, especially newer shooters, things along those lines.
It's not that bad, it's just low lift. It's not dirt, it's just low lift.
So that could be too much trigger, too little trigger, things like that as well. Even Tonto said, hey, as long as you're in somewhere of a good area, it says, cool, practice the fundamentals, slow, steady squeeze, let it shoot. Cool. All right, so we know physically the mechanics behind the human body and the ergonomics of the gun could actually lead to a malfunction. And that could, typically what we see is a failure to extract. There's like a slang term like stovepiping. What does that mean? Well, sometimes you would actually see the spent case get kind of like stuck almost in a vertical position. I think the thumbnail to this video is actually that exact image. And the gun's pretty much stuck in this position with a spent shell right about here. Easiest way to clear that? Well, I lock that back, make sure that shell's out of there, send it home. You typically don't need to drop the mag. Sometimes you do, right? But you really have to learn, focus, train with your firearm and then understand exactly what's happening. So go to the range and if you can, try to induce some of these malfunctions. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if you get that low grip, I'm able to do it if I think about it. Kind of limp wrist it, make sure the gun's pointed in a safe direction here, and then all of a sudden it doesn't cycle. You might have that issue, and then it's like, okay, cool. So now that I know how to cause the problem.
Also, you have to do it very safely. Yes. So don't do it too light. And make sure it's pointing.
Yeah, we get spoiled because we're in an outdoor range and we get.
But that's not the case.
180 degree safety. So maybe actually inducing the malfunction is not a good idea on your part. But you can throw in snap caps. You can have your buddy load in them. Again, this happened to me. I don't know exactly if that's the best way of doing it, but Matt loaded a blank for me, and I thought I had a squib round. And I'm like, ooh, that's spicy. Yeah. So there are other ways of doing it, though. Ultimately, training with it, learning with it, is going to be the best way of going about coming across these malfunctions. It's going to happen. At some point in time, you're going to have a malfunction. These are pieces of machinery, and a lot of you guys don't, keep them clean or anything like that. And as that progresses, you'll notice there might be some fouling. There might be some feeding issues. Magazines will start to wear out. Your slide won't be locking back on the last round anymore. Little things like that. Learn your gun, right? And then on top of that, let's get into the actual mechanics of the firearm. So we've got the Shadow Systems DR920P. This guy right here is the compensated model, which is a pretty sweet thing. When you start adding more to your gun, or taking away from your gun, you're going to start playing with the reliability on that. Like for instance, the Glock 34 right here, and as most of you know, a basic Glock is actually a very reliable gun. But there's those of us, again, guilty, that really like to do that customized look, like to do some slide cuts, serrations, and everything else, and you start taking away weight from the slide. Glock, and the reason they're so reliable is because, well, they're simple. There's nothing really fancy like about this model other than the optics cut and some forward slide serrations. Very basic things. The moment you start taking away metal and material and weight from the gun, now all of a sudden you are going to start actually messing with its reliability. You might have, honestly, you might have not enough weight up top for the gun to act as it's supposed to. That could induce a malfunction. You could have an issue with there not being enough resistance on the slide, or you might have issues with your guide rod and spring actually being able to function the gun. There's things to kind of think about. So before you start, sending your gun, your slide off to get milled here and there and all that, make sure it's going to a reputable company that knows what they're doing and won't be taking too much from the gun. Anyway, so now let's talk about, adding stuff to the gun. Like for instance, on the DR920P by Shadow Systems here, it's got a built-in compensator. So adding a muzzle device to your gun, especially a pistol, can be problematic. I haven't had any issues with this one. I do believe that just because it has the opening port on the top, there's nothing coming out the sides or anything. It's weird how these work. Muzzle devices can offer some really cool things to your gun. It can cause it to be a little bit flatter shooting. It can shoot, which could ultimately mean quicker follow-up shots, things along those lines, which is fun. But because of the inherent operating system of a pistol, sometimes it could actually cause reliability issues. Again, I have not had that issue here. It's just a representation of the comped pistol. Now, if you add something like a silencer to it, I love shooting suppressed. However, if you add a silencer to your gun and you don't exactly understand the functionality of that gun, sometimes you need to have a reduced recoil spring. Sometimes you need to have something a little bit different. Sometimes you need to check the weight of the ammunition that you're shooting and the quality. Because what you'll notice is adding the silencer to it might just turn it into a one-shot gun that you'd have to cycle each time. Not something that would be ideal. Just throwing that out there. And I love shooting guns with muzzle devices on them. I think they're fun. Are they necessary? No, absolutely not. I'm just talking about pistols, because if you're shooting let's say any other type of rifle out there without a muzzle device, it's not terrible by any means for the shooter. But if you got buddies around you, might be a bad day. Side note, caveat, depending on the muzzle device, like a break on a 10.3 or something will also be a terrible day. So don't do that. But anyway, okay. So now that you know what your issue is with the firearm, we know that these guns work and they work reliably. Go through the process and explain to us, how do you fix what you're doing wrong? Show us what you're doing wrong. How do you fix it? Yeah.
From which one? From me anticipating the recoil? Because that's where I started.
Let's do malfunction, and then we can get down. So now that we've gotten, a good firm grip on the gun, now we can start focusing on shot placement and fundamentals. Right? So let's go ahead and start there. So initially, again, exaggerating for the intro, what was your grip on the gun?
Oh, it was like
way low
this
and weak, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So right here, the problem is what Katie's got going on is she doesn't have a high grip on the gun. With that, if you have a lot of play right here in the shoulder of the gun and where this little beaver tail is and the webbing of your thumb, if you have a lot of play right here, when this starts to reciprocate, that's going to allow more area for the gun to kind of come back and do this number. So you're going to feel more recoil, and then on top of that, just due to the mechanics of the gun itself, what's going to happen is most likely it's not going to cycle reliably, as we saw.
Yep.
So how do you fix that?
Slide up.
Choke up on it, right?
And grip a little tighter.
Grip a little tighter, that's right. So what did Tonto teach you about grip placement?
Oof, a lot.
Yes. Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen the one-on-one video with Katie and Tonto while we were out at the Fort Scott Munitions training, go check that out. It's pretty informational stuff. But walk us through exactly what he said about a good grip.
Yeah, so he's like making up where it's pinching the fat on your hand.
Yep.
Pinching the fat, and then just make sure you get a good grip all the way around. And then he said he doesn't like to put his finger down here. He likes to put it in, or he doesn't like to put it straight. He likes to put it like this, because there's no point in getting your grip set like this when you're not going to be gripping like that. You're going to be down here.
Okay.
So set it like this. Make sure this thumb here, off thumb, or I guess not off thumb, pointing straight. And then
And typically what you do is you take your non-dominant hand and you point that thumb at the target.
Yep.
Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yep. So actually, I lied. This thumb is Tonto and I both have had the same problem. He obviously fixed his. So this thumb pointing at the target, this one wrapping around, and then you squeeze out like you're squeezing a towel.
So, but he told you to keep your dominant thumb kind of up like this?
Yeah, so
because I like to kind of ride knuckle on knuckle.
So it depends.
Yeah.
So he holds his up a little higher because he says he gets too comfortable. And then when he gets too comfortable, then it starts to drift. But if you do it like this, then you're less likely to dip.
Okay.
Because if you have this up here, it's not gonna dip because it's stopping it, you know? I don't know how to explain it, but basically when you shoot, body mechanics. Like it's when you're shooting like this and then you pull back, you see how like all the muscles and everything go. But if you're holding up higher, then
it's all related,
a way
right?
your hands
Right.
work.
So, for instance, I know that if I were to keep my thumb up, kind of like what you're talking about here, right? So this is kind of up in space. I feel like, I don't know, that's just not comfortable for me per se, right? And granted, if it works for you, great. And I think it did. I mean, we saw your shot placement whenever you shot with him. So from here, if I'm up like this, I don't know, it's kind of distracting to me. I just like to kind of place this down.
I mean, if that's what you're taught and that's what you're comfortable with.
Right. But you know what else doesn't work for me?
What?
Doing that. And I'll explain why really quick. It's not that my shots aren't hitting the target. It's not that I'm dipping the barrel. It's actually come down to the controls on the gun. If it's a Glock, I don't have this issue so much with like my 320 or a couple of other guns that I'm running right now. But what I notice is if I've got my non-dominant hand wrapped around my dominant hand and I got my dominant thumb sitting on top of my non-dominant thumb, you know what else it's sitting on top of? The slide release. So if I'm shooting, not paying attention, and then I go to, oh, crap. Now if I do kind of what you did and just take my thumb off, let it hang out over here some, now it's going to do as it's supposed to. Right?
Yeah, he also said he doesn't really like when they touch very much.
When your thumb and the slide touch?
No, your two hands. He doesn't want them resting on each other because then you're pushing this into this hand. So when you're rotating, it's just there needs to be a little bit of a gap so you're not using this as a rest for this hand.
Okay, so which hand?
If I remember correctly, it's been a while.
Yeah. So now let's talk specifically about the grip. How much pressure and with which hand are you applying most pressure around the grip?
So I don't know how to get this past on here. So you're holding it like this, right? And you have your offhand and you're up here, and the fat making a little, and then you're going up here, and then when you push out, you're wringing like a towel. So this hand is kind of like wringing forward, this one's wringing back like this, but you don't want to rest this on top of this, and then you're just, I mean, it's not perfect.
Are you applying a lot of pressure with your non-dominant hand?
Yeah.
That's where you're applying most of the pressure?
Yeah.
And
because that way you're making up for anything that you're pushing too far on this. Like if I'm not squeezing and I'm pulling, then it's just off-centering all of this.
Okay. I get
One day I'll get better at explaining things.
See, that's why when
to
you
me
find
it's like Tonto explained it and then I'm processing it, and then after me trying to think back and then reprocess and speak it, it's not working out. Just go back and watch the video.
I was just like, good thing we have a whole video on it.
Just go watch Tonto explain it in case I messed up.
Right. So ultimately look at it this way though, and if you go and seek instruction, which you should, a good instructor will be able to articulate these things a little bit better, I've been shooting for a long time and I sometimes just can't form into words exactly like when I'm talking to a new shooter. I'm like, hey, here's what works for me. Here's how I do it. Bam, hit the target. Okay, cool. How'd you do that? I just did it.
Tell me about it.
You do it. Okay.
Tell me about it.
Like, so, it's like years of me figuring out what works and doesn't work for me. I don't know. How much instruction have I actually had? A little bit, but not a whole lot. Which honestly I don't advocate for. Go out there, get instruction from multiple different types of instructors, and what they should be able to walk you through is malfunctions, fundamentals, breathing, grip. All these things that really make a good shooter.
Well, there's a lot of things that people don't understand. So sometimes you're gonna go to an instructor who has really big hands. You don't have really big hands, so what they do is not going to work for you.
Right.
Or maybe they have plenty of upper body strength and you don't have plenty of upper body strength, or stuff like that. Like it's just, you have to figure out what works for you, and sometimes getting a lot of information from different people doesn't mean that they're all going to be the exact same. It's more of what works for you and your body type and your body style and your lifestyle and how that works.
Makes sense to me. So when it comes down to it, malfunctions with pistols, they are a thing. They do exist. So go out there, make sure you're maintaining your gun, especially if it's your everyday carry gun. Make sure that it's functioning reliably. And on top of that, go to the range, practice, spend the money on the defensive ammunition that you're going to be running with your gun, and shoot that at the range to make sure it cycles, and to make sure that your gun likes eating it. Because if it doesn't, then that's probably not the ammunition you want to use for your defensive ammunition or your everyday carry ammo. With that being said, also, slow. That is one thing I have to tell myself all the time. Slow it down. When we recently did like the Thunder Ranch, stuff, and we were out there shooting with them.
Yeah, I don't know. About that.
Next time. That wasn't my fault. You can blame Adam. Anyway, when we were running out there, I ran a really, really good course of fire. But Heidi, Clint's wife, I hit all shots, 2 shots on 3 targets with the pistol, and it was a smooth rhythm. You couldn't even tell. I thought I did great. She said, no, go back, do it again. This time, shot placement. Great, you hit the target. Did you know where you hit the target? I was like, yeah, shoulder and chest, like whatever. And she's like, great, make that 2 shots on top of each other. And it's like, okay, fine, swallow a bit of that humble pie and sit there, pop, 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 pop. Okay, cool. Because the pop, 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 pop I did before may have looked cool when you're not looking at the target.
I think that's what a lot of people make mistakes doing when they're training, is like they want to train fast because they want to be fast. Yeah. But if you train slow and you train accurately, your
muscle memory.
The muscle memory, but I'm talking about the adrenaline is going to speed you up. Adrenaline is always going to speed you up. So if you have your fundamentals down and you're more slow when you're practicing, when you're training, then you're automatically just gonna. You're gonna get there. It's gonna be faster.
You're gonna get there.
It's gonna be faster when you need it.
Yeah. What's the saying? It's like you will always, go back to your very basic training. Yeah. Right. In that high stress situation, you always go back to your minimalist training, right? And so it's kind of like up that, and be good at doing something slow and steady, and be repetitive with it.
I mean, that's just like playing any other sport growing up. Like, man, I would go through, like when I played softball, I would go through slumps and I couldn't hit jack squat. I mean, I would go like 3 games without a home run and I would be so mad at myself, right? And my dad would be like, all right, hit the tee. And I'm like, come on, I don't have to hit off a tee. He's like, yes, you do. Go back, foot placement, slow down every step by step by step by step. And the next game I would hit like 2 home runs and I'd be great, You're happy about it. But the thing is, you go through slumps and sometimes you get so frustrated, you're just like, no, I can do better, I can do better. But you don't stop and step back and be like, no, I need to go back to step 1 and start from there.
Yeah, that's something that definitely applies when shooting as well. I mean, there's been plenty of times shooting at 100, 200, 300 yards. I'm like, why am I not hitting the freaking target? Cool, I'm speeding up and I'm missing faster. Yep. And then all of a sudden it's like, slow down, go back to your breathing. Slow, steady squeeze.
That's like me every time. Clint will be like hitting from like 20 yards and I'm not hitting at all. And I'll just walk up to like 5 yards and I'll be like, all right, we're going to start here. And then I'll step back and then step back all the way back.
Fundamentals and practice. So what malfunctions have you guys seen in some of your pistols? Are there different drills that you have run that induce a malfunction? Do you use snap caps? What exactly do you guys do? I think one of the best things to do, honestly, is have a friend load your magazines, but use live rounds, right? So that way you never know if you have 3 live rounds or 15 or whatever else it is. Sure, you'll have the weight that you can feel and you can judge that. But go out there, practice, train, get those reloads, get those reps in, and seek professional instruction.
Don't you